Welcome to Plus Size Stories Episode 2. Now, Plus Size Stories is a project that I decided to take on in an effort to give a voice to other just regular folks that are on their own weight loss journey. I found, frankly, that TV shows that are about weight loss tend to be of the exploiting nature, and tend to exploit those that are on the show, and that really annoys me. So we are continuing with this video series, which just is, my hope is that it gives a voice and humanity to those we speak with. So with that, today we have a 36-year-old man from Champaign, Illinois. His name is Jordan, and he's a legal assistant, and he's been on his weight loss journey pretty much all his life, but really just started kicking into it in July of 2022. And so we sit down and we talk with Jordan. Here we go.
Okay.
Welcome to Plus Size Stories. We are talking today with Jordan, a 36-year-old man from the Champaign, Illinois area. And he is also going through a weight loss journey like many of us. And we're here to just find out a little bit more about him. Jordan, thank you so much for showing up today and for agreeing to sit and talk with me. Just to put it all out there, Jordan and I have been TikTok friends for quite some time now.
Yeah.
So we're not exactly strangers, but I may not know the details about a lot of his journey. So, Jordan, why don't you just tell people a little bit about yourself?
First of all, I want to say thanks for having me, man. It's my pleasure. I've been looking forward to doing this. So
You are very welcome.
I appreciate it. I guess I could start with myself. Like you said, I'm 36. I'm married. I have been for 14, going on 14. It'll be 14 years in November. We've got a little girl who's 11. We homeschool. And I work as a legal assistant for the state of Illinois here. And I also have another job that I do part-time. I work for a farm and home store because I live in the Midwest, so why not?
Right.
So that's a little bit about myself. I'm a musician, I guess, if you want to do throw hobbies in there.
Sure.
I play guitar, bass. Been playing the drums a little bit lately. Probably something I picked up in the last 3 or 4 years. Same with piano, but yeah.
And that's primarily involved with your church?
Yeah. Well, I started playing guitar when I was 12. Actually, because I wanted to play bass, and my parents said, "No way, you have to learn how to play the guitar first." So they bought me a guitar, and then they never bought me a bass. It kind of conned me that I don't know. It was when I got my first job that I got my first bass. So
Okay. All right. So you are, as we say, busy.
A little bit, yeah. I'm the sound tech at church. I'm like the head of the sound department, and I also play bass there. Then I work about 60 to 65 hours a week, so I have a couple irons in the fire.
Yep.
I also DJ, actually. I'm a wedding DJ as well, so
Jeez.
that's turned into more of a hobby since COVID. I was running about 12 gigs a year, probably about one a month, but since COVID, over the 2 years that the lockdown was happening, I only did 2 weddings. So
Wow.
yeah. So
Well, hopefully that picks up again for you,
yeah,
because it sounds like something like that would be fun to do.
yeah, it is a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's great. I actually did a wedding once. They wanted a wedding announcer more than a DJ. It was the weirdest thing. It was literally doing the normal, like, please welcome for the first time, the introductions and the wedding party and all that. And that's fine. That's normal.
Right.
But as far as music goes, they had a playlist on an iPod, and they said, hey, can you just press play at this time?
Yikes.
Sure.
Yeah.
They paid me.
Yeah.
I mean, it was weird. It was just weird. But yeah, I'm not a DJ. And I told them flat out, I'm that's not my thing. So, cool.
I've been
So,
doing that for like 12 years now. I actually started.
wow.
Wife went to Bible school out in Tulsa.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a company there. It's like a really big company called DJ Connection, and I started working for them. And of course, I did a non-compete contract or whatever when I signed up with them. But you just can't DJ in neighboring states. Well, Illinois is a state over, so when I came back, I just picked it up and started doing it for myself. You know?
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's again that sounds like it would be a fun gig. I'm busy on the day of, certainly, but yeah.
Sure.
Cool. So why don't we talk a little bit about your weight loss journey? Give us a little history of basically just your weight loss journey from whatever point you'd like to start.
Oh man, we can start. Man, I guess we could start where I think the beginning was. There's not too much that's off limits with me. So I think it started when I noticed that it started. It was 96, so I was 9 years old. A tornado came through my hometown, and it was quite traumatizing to me. I was just like, if there was even dark clouds in the sky at that point, I would freak out. So my parents took me to a therapist and took me to the doctor, like to try and get this thing figured out. And I got put on some medicine for ADD and a couple other things. And I noticed shortly after that I started to get chunky then. And I don't know that it's a side effect of the medicine or if it was just a side effect of the stress or what it was, but that's when I noticed. I was around 9 when I started to gain weight.
Huh.
So that happened, and then, it just kind of kept going, and I would get bigger, and my parents also were overweight. So my mom would be like, she'd put me on 1,000 diets. I promise you, man. Like Dr. Atkins was big back then.
Yep.
So I choked down many a grapefruit in my middle school years. My mom was pretty adamant about that, and of course, she tried to get me to follow it, but I was not into just not eating carbs like I haven't been all my life.
Right.
So Dr. Atkins was pretty low carb. So I don't know. It affected. I was private. I was in a private school. So when it came to bullying and stuff, it didn't happen a lot because there were like my graduating class was 4 people.
Wow. Okay.
So to an extent, it affected my social life, but I never felt singled out or anything like that. Plus, I had a big family. I've got 4 brothers and 2 sisters, and so my older brothers were kind of there. They were my insurance policy to make sure that I didn't get picked on.
Right.
And so plus, we were. I mean, in a school of 25 people, and you're 6 of them. Your family is 6 of them.
Right.
Like, you're kind of popular anyway, just by default. So, socially, didn't, of course, like dating, that was like a big deal. Like, my confidence was low because everybody around me was thin, and I think I had one other classmate that was overweight, and she wasn't even chubby,
Yeah.
I have overwhelmingly been the biggest guy in the room all of my life, from the time I was about 9 on. And a lot of things contribute to that, and I guess we'll probably get into that more a little bit later.
Sure.
But then, so after graduation, I dated around a little bit, and then when I turned 21, I met a really, really cool girl, and decided we'd make it official 7 months after dating.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fast.
It was it was really fast. It's worked out though. It's been good,
And how long have you been married?
13 years. It'll be 14 in November, so almost 14.
Well, that's great. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, we met on Facebook. Actually, she sent me. It's a funny story, kind of. If you want to edit this part out, that's fine. But I want to tell the story. She sent me. There was 3 girls in her profile picture, and she sent me a friend request. And I'm looking at the girls, and I'm like, man, if it's this girl, I don't want to be friends with her. If it's this girl, I don't want to. But if it's that girl, I'll accept it. So I go to my older brother that's right above me, and we've been best friends like all my life. And I'm like, Joel, what should I do about this? And he used a colorful expletive, but he's like, basically, you only live once. What do you have to lose? And so I was like, okay, well, if that's your opinion, I always valued his opinion, so I went ahead and accepted it. And I got lucky; it was the girl that I wanted it to be.
That's
So
great.
so we lived 20 miles apart. All the communities around here, all the small towns, like you end up intermingling and having friends from all of them. So it's just, and there are so many like different times we should have met earlier and we just didn't. Like we were going through pictures at my house one time, and she's going through these photo albums, and she's like, "This is my grandma," and I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah, why is my grandma at your house?" And apparently her cousin was friends with my older brother back in the day, and his mom and grandma came over and had dinner. It just so happened I was also, so I did, and she had passed away long before I was in the picture, but I was lucky enough to get to meet my wife's grandma, even though she wasn't alive when we got together.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah. Isn't it weird the way that works?
It is.
My wife basically grew up like 5 miles away from me, but we didn't go to the same schools, so we never actually met until high school. And then when I learned where she lived, I went, "That's like right down the road." Like, so yeah, very strange.
Yeah.
So
So I got lucky. Like I said, she didn't obviously care about my weight or anything, and then when you get out of the house, so we moved directly to Tulsa, Oklahoma. Like I was talking about earlier, she was in Bible college, and we moved there right away. She was already living there when we got married, actually. So we had met that spring, and then that fall she went to school, and then a couple months later I followed because I couldn't do that. Like I couldn't
yeah,
do that. Funny thing happened when I left home, and it's that I realized that you do not need a special occasion to buy a cookie cake. And so
yep,
so I had this newfound independence. Like I was living hundreds of miles away from anybody that would keep me accountable. I had my own apartment, I had my own place, my own income, and everything, and I just started making poor life decisions. And also being homesick, like you turn to um, the person that you have, so my wife for comfort, and then communally we turn to food for comfort. So if you guys need to know any great places to eat in Tulsa, I know every single one of them because that's just what we did. And
yeah,
it's like, when you're home or when you're far away from everybody that you've got each other and you've got food, and that's kind of how we passed those 2 years. So I came back, probably 50 pounds heavier than I was when I left. And then she got pregnant right away with our baby when we got back. And actually, she was pregnant when we left Tulsa, but we just didn't know it. So when we got home, we found out that she was pregnant. And just kind of never took any time. There have been, of course, several times, like my mom. My mom was a big influence every time I decided to lose weight. And of course, we lost her in 2017, but it was, I guess, after my daughter had been born in 2012. My mom was really big. I don't know if you ever heard of ViSalus, Body by Vi.
yeah, yep.
But my mom was really big into that. And so she got me making all these shakes, and she's like, "Oh, you do so good on it." And I did pretty good on it. But it was also kind of one of those fad diets because she was way into dieting, but she was way into fad dieting. So it was just not sustainable,
Right,
right?
right, right.
And that's the story of my life.
Yep.
And
And not just yours. Like a lot of us went through that kind of thing. I had my run with Atkins as well.
yeah,
I'm sure I did the South Beach diet,
I
and
forgot about that one. We did
yeah,
that one too.
I did Weight Watchers for a while, I mean just a lot of them, right? And it just and it's just I think we just grasp for whatever we think will work, and
I
desperation will point us in those directions sometimes.
100%. And I think that dietary literature can be good, but if you're getting your diet from a book, like a book, probably not going to pan out in the long run.
Right.
At least that's been my experience. I'm sure some people may have hit up Atkins and it worked wonderfully for them, and they've been able to maintain it ever since 2002.
Right.
Like that's completely possible. But in my case, if it's a fad diet, it just hasn't worked so far.
Yeah.
So that kind of, it was up and down and up and down, like the same old story. Like, I'm gonna shameless plug here, like in my poem "You Weren't There," like a rubber ball, man. It just continued to bounce up and down, up and down.
Yep.
And then so 5 years later, it was a little less than 5. My daughter was just about, oh no, she had just turned 5 when my mom passed away. Like within 15 days, I think. So 5 years later, my mom, she was actually doing really good too, man. She was doing, like, she had finally found a rhythm and was really dropping weight. And she suffered from asthma. An asthma attack just took her out. Like,
oh man.
Yeah, super. It was a Sunday morning. She was getting ready for church, and she just had an asthma attack. And Dad got her a puffer, and she just looked at him, and her last words were, "It isn't working." And so she passed away. We all, like, they were able to keep her body alive until we could all get to the hospital and say goodbye. But I think it was more for us than for her.
Yeah.
So my brother, I say my brother, so I've got 4 brothers. I'll just use that generality when I'm talking about them, because you guys don't care about the timeline.
Sure.
But one of my brothers, he had gotten pretty big as well, not as big as me, but he took my mom's death as a wake-up call, and I took it as the opposite. He lost a ton of weight. He's done really good, and he's fluctuated a little bit since then, but he's back down. And but he took it as a wake-up call, and I took it as a downfall, I guess. If you want to put it in those.
I know exactly what you're talking about. And I lost both of my parents within a 6-year span. And when the days that those things happen, they're not good. And and turning to food, look, is a habit. Like for us that are kind of locked into emotional eating. It just, you get a big old case of I don't care, and mow down anything that you can put your hands on.
Yeah.
So
I know people say that this is a Midwestern thing, but it's mostly people in the Midwest that I say. I think it's just like a cultural thing. Everything revolves around food. So when we're depressed, we go get ice cream to make ourselves feel better, or a chocolate bar. If we're happy, let's celebrate. Let's have a cake.
Yeah.
Like if we're sad and mourning, well, what does everybody do? They come to your house bringing loads of lasagna and garlic bread and tacos and whatever crock pot meal they can think of, and they just shower you with food, because that's how we know to comfort people.
Well, and there's a reason why it's called comfort food, right?
That's right.
Yeah. It shouldn't be any great surprise to anybody that we turn to food for a lot of things, because it is a cultural thing. That's not a Midwest thing. It's just not. It's a wonder that it's a question to me.
Yeah.
So
sure.
There are cookbooks labeled comfort food. I mean, So, about when, and again, only if you know and if you're comfortable talking about it. But
Yeah.
going back to high school,
Uh-huh.
about how heavy were you at that point?
So in high school, I was over 300. I want to say probably 350 when I graduated.
Okay.
And man, and don't get me wrong, 350 is big. Um, but I look back at those high school pictures and I'm like, man, I wish I was that fat again. Like,
Isn't that isn't I understand. I completely understand. And look, my peak isn't what your peak was, and we'll talk about that as well. But
yeah,
I was just about 370,
okay,
and I saw pictures of me at 300, and I did exactly the same thing. I went, man, I wish I was that small again.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, so I think everybody's got those kinds of perspective, right? I just
right,
you look back and you go, I know I'm not in shape there, but man, I'd like to be that out of shape again.
yeah. I like this quote I heard. It was from a divorce attorney, and I'm going to steal his line without telling you his name because I don't remember what his name is.
Sure.
But he said, "I don't know who discovered water, but I know it wasn't a fish because when we're in a thing, we can't see it."
Ah,
And I'm like, that was brilliant and blew my mind. And that's kind of how it has been, like, on this up and down thing. Like when I'm in my down phases, like I think, I'm doing so bad, but I can't really see because I'm so surrounded by everything that's going on at that point to realize, hey, it's not so bad. Let's just keep pressing on. And eventually I would get discouraged every time.
right. So, so we know about high school. What was your max weight like now? Just from then until
High,
now.
so my
Yeah.
the highest I ever weighed in was 605 pounds. And I know it was higher than that. I don't, excuse me. I don't know how much higher than that, but I had started to lose weight a month before I did that weigh in. So,
It's so funny because I know so many people who do that. I do that. I like when I was trying to lose weight, I would go, I'm not weighing myself now, but I'm going to give myself a week or two of
yeah,
dieting, and then I'll because I want to get in the habit of,
right.
of losing weight before I jump on the scale. When in reality, I don't want to know. I
Yeah.
just I just don't want to know. And so
That,
I am 90% sure that I was pushing 400 at before, at some point.
yeah.
But I really don't want to know that. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I
So
won't even I won't even entertain the guesses of what I was. Like I've tried to go there before, and I'm like, yeah, that's just stupid. Like I
because
don't
it
really
doesn't
care.
matter. It doesn't matter, right?
There's no way
Yeah.
I can find out definitively how high I got, but I know for sure I was at 605. Um, June of 2021.
Okay.
So that was my highest point, and I don't know if you want to go into that story about that weigh-in. I want to talk about it, but I don't know if now is
Please,
the time to talk
please,
about
no, no,
it. Okay.
please, absolutely.
So I had decided. So this was after my dad passed away in 2020. I took his death really, really hard. Like I took my mom's hard, but it was like, um, you know, guys I think are just closer with their dads, right?
So just when in 2020 did your dad pass?
May of 2020.
So my dad passed in March of 2020.
Oh, okay.
So I absolutely know what you're talking what you're talking about and where you're coming from on that. And I took his death really hard as well. So I'm sorry. Go on. I just thought
So
that was interesting.
yeah. So I guess to back up, my mom died in 2017. My brother took it as a wake up call. I kind of spiraled, and then in 2018, I decided, okay, it's time like to get going on this thing. You need to lose weight again. And I was actually at a karaoke party, and a friend of mine named Josh, he had done a video of me singing, and he sent it to me, and he was like, "Hey, you did a good job on this song," and I looked at that video and I didn't see it as I did a good job. I thought, I do not even recognize that dude. Like, I was so much bigger than I thought I was in real life. And so that's when I was like, okay, we've let it go long enough. Like, let's get on this. And I started walking like crazy. I started dieting. Um, and my goal then was just to burn as much. I had it in my mind. I said, if I can do this for the next 18 months, I can drop as much weight as I can, and then I'll be good. Because I had weighed in at 550 was my high weight at that point. Because after I saw those pictures, like, I gotta know how much I weigh. So I went and weighed in, and it was 550, and I'm like, okay, 18 months. I'm sure I can get down to normal, like 300 in the 300s within that point of time. And I was like, okay, it was a mad dash for me the next 18 months. And,
why 18 months, if I can ask?
Because it was just like, I didn't want to be doing it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, right?
Yep.
So it was like a mad dash to like lose a lot of weight really quick. And that lasted for 6 months, man. Over the next 6 months, I lost a ton of weight. I lost I went from 550 to 426, I think it was.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So, and that was within 6 months, man. I just dropped it. And I was like, I was getting it. And I was like, okay, my goal, I can do this if I keep it up. And then of course, COVID started going around, and well, COVID hadn't hit yet. That was still in 2019. By the time I had got that burnout, I was like, okay, we're going to do maintenance. And I did maintenance all summer long, and into the fall, I started losing a little bit again. Because I was like, okay, this is the weather that I can really get out and work in and like be comfortable in. And so I started, and then that December, my dad had been diagnosed with liver cancer. And also that was really weird. Like he had never drank a drop of alcohol in his life. And it just like, he was one of the guys that got liver cancer. But anyway, so that was that December. And it kind of like, that didn't really throw me off. I mean, of course I was concerned. And then when they found out that it was terminal, I was really concerned. But then COVID hit that spring and everything just stopped. And then shortly, 2 months after COVID hit, my dad died. And then I didn't care. I just didn't care anymore. And then I gained for the next year. I bought this house actually just a couple I guess it was a couple weeks before that weigh-in. So we bought this house, and that closing picture, that's my high weight picture, because that's the only time I got a picture taken in that era of my life. And of course that was horrible. So then I had to do all the new homeowner things, like mow my own lawn and like move all of my stuff in. Of course you have help, but you still have to like,
yeah.
And that's also embarrassing. Like when you bought this house and then you've got all these people coming to help you, and they're like, "Oh, dude, just sit down. You're sweating like crazy. I know you're out of breath. Just sit down." And you're like, "Man, you guys are helping me. Like I should be out there working harder." Like, and so that's like really embarrassing. But then a friend of mine, did we freeze up?
Nope.
Okay,
we're good.
I got a text message. Sorry. But a friend of mine bought a house just a couple months later, and I was helping him move. And of course, I was still at my height. Well, I had started losing a little bit of weight, but I was still in the 600s, I'm sure. And I did something to my back, and I had they called it. It was a red flag case of saddle anesthesia. So anywhere, imagine you're sitting on a saddle, anywhere that saddle would touch was just numb. Oh. And then my complete left leg was numb. And they said if it was a white flag case, that means that it's irreversible. And that comes with a lot of fun stuff like loss of bladder control, loss of bowel control. And so they were monitoring me for that. Yeah. And so that scared me really, really bad.
Yeah.
But so that's kind of like what kicked this off. But my idea this time was, because in 2018, I was shamed out of doing bariatric surgery because I was like, that's what I want to do. You know, I've lost all this weight and that's what I want to do next. And then it's cheating people got to my head. And that's like, if I'm a little bit preachy about that sometimes on my TikTok channel, that's why, because they got in my head. And I just don't want that to ever derail anybody from losing their weight. Like, if that's a tool that's going to help you and you know it's going to help you, go for it. So that was my idea. And I said, I'm not going to let anybody discourage me from doing it this time. I'm just going to go. And so I found a surgeon that was a private practice. He wasn't affiliated with a clinic here. And I went in, and me and my wife both went in for consultations. I stepped on his scale. And this was, aside from my parents dying, this was the worst day of my life. Because I was not prepared to see that I was 600 pounds. Like, you see the show, like, My 600-Pound Life, like you were talking about in the beginning. Like,
right.
They exploit people's tragedies for their pocketbook, right?
Right.
And so you get that idea in your head of 600-pound people. You don't think of people. At the time I was walking around, I was, you know, fine. I didn't have my back issue at that time. I didn't have my leg issue at that time. And so you just have this stigma, like 600-pound people are the kind of people that are laying in the bed and people are bringing them buckets of mashed potatoes and chicken and noodles. Like, that's not me. So I was not prepared to see 605 pounds on the scale. But I stepped on the scale and it said 605, and it was not a nurse that was weighing me. It was the surgeon himself. And he looked at the scale, and then he looked at me and he said, 605 pounds. And I said, yeah. And he says, does that sound right? And I was like, are you kidding me? Are you, like, that's your scale. Do you trust it or not? Why would you ask me that? And then, so he takes us back to his office and he starts talking to my wife, and he does her consultation. And then he looks at me and he says, I don't want to see you back until you've lost at least 100 pounds. And that was just the end of the conversation. Not like, this is our plan going forward to get you to lose the 100 pounds. It was, I don't want to see you again until you've lost 100 pounds. And I took that day, I took it as a death sentence, because I wasn't prepared to see 605 pounds. And so that was already mentally, like, just a punch to the gut. Yeah. And then for the health care professional that I went to see to help me with this problem to say he didn't want to see me back until I fixed myself, to me that was a death sentence, man. And I remember I was so wrong to my wife on the ride home, and I'm not like an angry person at all, but I was pretty angry that day. And she was like, well, we'll figure something out. We'll figure something out. And I just told her, like, the most heartbreaking thing I probably could have said. I said, well, I guess our future planning for me is just, we'll pick out my tombstone. And that was like, who says that to their wife, you know?
Right.
And of course, in retrospect, but it's, again, that thing, when you're going through something, you don't see it. When you're in something, you don't see it.
Right.
That wasn't a compassionate thing to say to her. She was already scared for her husband, because she had seen, you know, how I was getting around. She could see I was out of breath all the time. She could see I wasn't enjoying life. Here we had just bought this house, and now her husband's new plan is to die. Like, how insensitive could I have been in that moment? Not much more than I was. So
let me ask you I got to tell you, I'm annoyed by proxy at the way the surgeon handled that.
Yeah.
And I wonder how the surgeon, for the way that you needed to be communicated with, how could the surgeon have delivered that same message, but in a way that you would have been receptive to?
Well, he could have started by trusting his equipment and not making me verify the weight that I wasn't prepared to see. Mm-hmm. He could have just wrote that down and made a note. We'll talk to this about him when we talk to him in his side of the consultation. And then I think when he talked to me, he could have said, listen, you're a little bit heavier than my patients usually are. I I think we have some things that we can do. Maybe schedule some appointments with the staff to get you on a weight loss plan, and we're gonna see you through it. It really wouldn't have had to been much. Just I'm here. We're here with you. We'll walk through it with you. Um, but it was just I don't want to see you again until you lose 100 pounds.
Yeah. And the reason I ask is because I've heard from others that have gone in for those consultations, and from what I can tell, and I'm not a bariatric guy, but I support whatever decision you make. But the consultations that I've heard that have gone well usually surround you're a little heavier than we would want to take a risk with. In order to mitigate that risk and really make it the safest plan for you, we really need you to drop another 100 pounds. And so here's some possible resources for how this may be able to help. And again, go as if there is a future.
Yeah.
Not just go, you got to lose 100 pounds. Give us a call when you do.
Right. And I've had friends that have used that surgeon and they love him, and that's great. Like,
Sure.
if you can use him, but in my situation, his bedside manner, it literally left me feeling like I left his office with a death sentence.
Right.
And then he also billed my insurance for it.
Of course, right? Okay, all right. So we've got that done. You came feeling like really just out of sorts from that experience.
Yeah.
Now what?
So then after the breakdown and the cry, and then seeing my wife cry over it, that was my wake up call. To know how devastated I had made her by saying that, and then she of course let me know, like, you can't just give up. You've got me, you've got your daughter, like, we've got this life planned, and you can't just like roll over on it. Like, you got to do something. And she was gracious with me, and she gave me time to figure it out. And we both, surprise surprise, decided not to go with that doctor. And then after we both tried to do it for a few more months naturally, that's when I had my back issue. And they were monitoring me, and the back doctor said, listen, I don't give her enough credit, and maybe I'll do a video about that sometime. I don't think I give her enough credit with encouraging me on my weight loss journey, because I went to her and I was doing a strength test, and she was like, you still have good strength, like your nerves aren't shot in your legs. She said, Jordan, if you could just lose 5 pounds, you don't even know how much stress that would take off of your spine. And I was sitting there at that point, I think I was 570. And to hear say, if you just lose 5 pounds to this guy with a BMI over 80, you don't know what that would do for you. That encouraged me more than, because doctors have that reputation, and not all, there's plenty of compassionate doctors, especially in the bariatric community and stuff. But they have that stigma of they're always on people that are overweight. So to hear her be like, if you just lose 5 pounds, that would be so good for you. And so that really encouraging. And I asked one of the nurses if I could get a referral to the bariatric program at the hospital that I was at. And she said, yeah, no problem. She was like a physician's assistant, I guess, not a nurse. And so she wrote up my referral. I got to the bariatric program there. And it has been a very long time that I've been pre-op, but part of that was my problem, and some of that was not under anyone's control. So I decided that I wanted to do the long haul. So my insurance requires 12 visits. We could have doubled it up, but I was like, no, I want to make sure that I have habits formed. So let's do 12 months. So it was a year. And then after that year, we had run into, like, the surgeon had an issue, so we had to switch up surgeons. He had to move out of state, actually, so there's no way. You can't Zoom call a surgery in.
Right, so. Right.
So we had to switch that up. And so now my wife has a surgery date, and we don't want to both be in recovery at the same time. So mine probably won't happen till next year. Again, I am like, when she called and told me she got a date, like I'm a crier, Kurt. Like I'm a very emotional person. And she was like, "Are you crying?" And I'm like, "I'm just so proud of you." Like,
That's awesome. That's awesome.
but so yeah, I probably won't be till next year. But I'm still losing. I went through the CAT scan thing that I explained to you.
Yeah.
Like when my former surgeon said that I had to get this CAT scan. Um, it was one of those you don't want to know type of things, like you said with the weigh-in. I don't want to know. I had to be under my BMI was high enough to where I had to measure myself, and I had to be under this measurement. And I was like, I don't want to know. I don't want to measure myself and then be told I'm too big to fit in the machine or whatever.
Right.
So I just didn't do it. And that's, I mean, back, I think I gained 15 to 20 pounds. But that's coming off now. Like that's been, I don't know how many months ago that was.
So that brings us pretty much to the present, right?
Right.
So what's your current weight, if you don't mind saying?
I don't know. I'll find out tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll find out tomorrow. I'll go weigh in tomorrow. But I think it's around 5'10".
Okay.
Last time I weighed in, it was 5'15".
Okay. All right. So still very, very much improved from 605.
Yes. Very much.
So that's great.
And that's kind of the thing that's been different this time is I haven't given myself a timeline. And I've just said, however long it takes, that's how long we'll be on it. And we're not going to give up even if we mess up, like I did for those couple of months after the CAT scan, MRI debacle or whatever. Like I still had in the back of my mind, even though I wasn't being as diligent, I still had, this is not a long-term thing. You're going to get out of this. You're going to get back to it. And so before I let myself slip back into that just groove of it, I got back into it. And it's just one of those things,
That's great. I think that one of the things that we always kind of rush into is not even rush into. That's the wrong term. One of the things we tend to do is we start a weight loss program, whatever that entails, and it could be something as simple as calorie deficit, or it could be a way of eating. But we shoot to lose as much weight as humanly possible as quickly as we can. And that hardly ever works out, right? It's versus setting a long-term solution that sets us up for life versus now.
Right.
So that's fantastic. So what kind of diet or eating method are you currently using in order to kind of keep things going?
Calorie deficit. That's it. I'm not doing anything special. I'm not. I've cleaned the little Debbies out of my house. that was a big downfall for me.
Ooh, I bet.
So basically, we do eat a lot of meat and veg. We do a lot of I guess what do they call it, clean eating, maybe, I don't know, whole foods.
Yeah.
Not a lot of processed stuff. We still do bread. We still do half a bagel or whatever, but we just don't. It's not how it used to be,
That's great. I think that's the trap that we fall into sometimes, and have often. I know I have the deprivation. Right? You're just like, you can't eat this food. Well, that just makes me want to have that food more.
You got that?
So literally, you joke about the little Debbie's thing, but I've gone into a store and go, you know what? I really want one of those oatmeal cream pies. So,
dude, yes, the fudge rounds.
So those two, and just go. I pick one up. I go, how many calories is it? I go, okay, 200 calories for this one oatmeal cream pie. Sure, I'm gonna have it.
Right.
And log it.
But you don't buy the whole box anymore.
Ooh, which is so easy. Right. This
was like a mental victory for me. I saw a a TikTok. Somebody had sent it to me, and they were like Little Debbie's that they need to bring back. And I was so. We always had fudge rounds and banana twins in our house.
Oh, yep, yep.
Times, okay. And so somebody had sent me a video saying that they needed to bring back banana twins, and I'm like, it's been so long since I bought Little Debbie's, I didn't even know they discontinued them. So that was like a win to me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, okay.
I was eating so much Little Debbie's that, like, one of my favorite things that they do is it's those cream pie things, but they have a peanut butter cream pie.
Yeah.
And with peanut butter cookies and peanut butter cream in between. And I could tell you how fresh they were by just picking up the package and going, oh, this is going to be a little stale. And,
Yep.
and nobody should know their snacks that well. But yeah, Little Debbie's, man. It was every time I'd stop for gas or go into a convenience store, I'd pick up a couple of those, at least a couple of those things, and some. I'm a Diet Coke guy. I was never a sugared soda guy, thank God. But that's just what you did. And for whatever reason, I would always buy doubles. I would always buy two things. And so yeah,
because they're 2 for.
Yeah, exactly. It's 2 for $1 or whatever, 2 for $2. Yeah.
It's not our fault.
Yeah. Okay, so that's cool. So let's talk. Well, first, before we even go to where I want to go to next, I want to ask you just flat out if I can follow up with you next year.
Yeah.
For a follow-up episode of this, because that's one of the things I'm trying to do. I want to find out, okay, where are people now? And if people have fallen off the wagon or stumbled and whatnot, I still want to know that, because that's real, right?
Yeah.
We need to know it's not all just success. And I'm not encouraging you to stumble at all. I would love for you to go, yeah, so since that episode, I've lost blah, blah, blah. Whatever that happens to be, that would be fantastic. But I want to make sure that everybody I'm talking to, either I know whether or not they want to follow up. And I think people definitely would want to know. So with that out of the way, because I know we don't have a whole lot of time, because I want to be respectful of your time, I want to know about the poem, and we will link it in the episode notes. So I want people to see this poem. I will tell you that it hit me hard, and because it was real, it was genuine, and it speaks to a lot of things that a lot of us feel. So, how did that come about for you? What was the genesis of you writing and then performing that poem?
So I've always been I don't know what kind of person. Like, I'm a very like touchy feely type of person, as in like I'm emotional, I guess is the so I've always done like the emotional heart thing. I've always written, I've been a musician. Those kind of things have always been part of my life, but I've always been so embarrassed to, because musicians think you have two kinds of musicians. Either they think they're the best in the world, or they think they're the worst in the world, right? So
yep.
So I always thought, man, I'm just nothing's good enough. Anything that I write isn't good enough to put out. And plus, it's also kind of being vulnerable with the subject matter and everything like that. So most of the poetry that I've written has ended up in the round filing cabinet, right?
Yep.
And I sat down and I wrote that. Actually, you guys aren't going to believe this. I wrote that on a lunch break, within an hour.
Inspiration happens when inspiration happens, right? And
so,
yeah.
So I was on lunch and I started. I'm like, man, I got to get this off my chest. I had never talked. I think I had mentioned on live a couple of times about my suicide attempt, but I had never put it out there for the world to see. And
I didn't know. I didn't know. And
yeah, so it was actually, I think it was really close to when it was either the day, it was on my 30th birthday, literally when I said it was my 30th birthday and I woke up and I didn't want to be alive, like didn't want to be awake. That was like, everything is factual in that poem. Like, it was my 30th birthday. My mom had just passed away 3 months later, and I think that was the day after Chester Bennington of Lincoln Park had killed himself, and that didn't have anything to do with my. It's just like, I remember it because they were so close together. Um, so I was like, man, I don't know that I want to put that out there. Like, but then I got thinking about it, and I'm like, well, what if there's somebody that's watching your videos that's feeling the same way that you were feeling? And of course, the weight wasn't the only thing I had going on in my life at that time, but it was one of the things. And like, I was living in a one-room house, or a one-bedroom house. It was like a tiny house, like 400 square feet. There were holes in the bathroom floor. Like, it was not like the landlord wasn't going to fix them. So my wife and daughter weren't even living with me at the time, because I had to find a new place. It wasn't safe for them to be at that house once it started falling apart. It was over 100 years old. And so I couldn't move because I had to be close to work. And they weren't with me. I felt like I didn't have a person in the world. My mom was who I would call and vent to, and she was gone. And so it was just a low point. And yeah, so I remember I got rid of that gun really, really shortly after that too. And I'm a firearm owner, and I always have been. But that one I just couldn't have in the house anymore.
yeah.
Because I worked, like I said, at a farm and home store, and I was putting up firearms the other day at work, and that exact same model caliber, I reached in, and like, it was like, just feeling the grip. I knew what it was right away.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, the last time that I had one of these in my hand, it was not a good thing. And so it was like a couple days after that I wrote that poem, because it was like, I guess it was just like the freshness of like having that, like knowing that I had the power now, like, and luckily I had the power that day to put it down, but knowing that it didn't affect me anymore. You know, I knew I could just pick it up, put it in the case, like no big deal. Where at one point it wasn't so cut and dry. It wasn't so black and white.
Right.
It was a couple days after that I had written that poem, and yeah, I sent it to Danny.
Yep.
And I was like, I gotta know what you think. And you know, he's so sweet. Like, I love Danny so much.
Yep.
And so I'm like, dude, if it stinks, you better tell me, because I don't want to put it out there and it's just bad. And he's like, you gotta post it. He's like, there's no way you don't. And so I said, okay. But I had literally I was sitting, I think in my car or something, and I had just read it. And so then right after work, I didn't have to go to my second job. So I was like, where am I going to shoot this at? And I thought about going to a lake I like to go to. And there's a hill that I do in my videos sometimes. I thought maybe I'll go to the hill and record it at the hill. And then I pulled in off the interstate, and I saw this grain elevator next to the train tracks, because I live in a train town. And I'm like, I'm going to pull up over there and do it. And so you notice I didn't take the time to memorize the poem. I was definitely reading it partway, and then partway, like, you know, but I was like, it's too fresh. I got to get it done now. Like, I didn't want to take the time to memorize it. And so I put out, and I'm going to do like a more professional job. Like, I'm going to hire a friend of mine who's a videographer to do it again, and probably put it out on YouTube or something. But,
so just, and look, only my opinion, I'm not sure that's necessary. And
really?
the only reason is that it comes from such a genuine place. You want to edit it and kind of make some video edits to the video itself, fine. But I love the rawness of it, and I think and it's real, and that is what affected people. And I think that And again, only my opinion, but I, because it's your art. You do what you like, because that's it, you have to get that out of your system.
It's by far my favorite video that I've ever made. And at the time when I was like, here is the life of a TikToker. And I know I'm not like a big time TikToker, but um, the things that we set up to be able to film like different settings, like you don't even know where you're going to be putting your phone that day, right?
Right.
So I didn't have a tripod, I didn't have anything, but I'm like, I'm on my way home, I got to get this done. Like, we're here now. And so I had pulled my car up like at an angle, and I was like, I can't even see the whole thing. So my door's halfway open and my phone's sitting on the ledge of my window, and I'm just staring, like talking to this phone, and like there are cars that drive by, and I think that's great for like the ambiance, to like to show that like it's not overproduced or whatever. So
Right.
I thought that was really cool. But at the same time, I'm like, they think I'm crazy. I'm just sitting here talking to my car door that's halfway open.
Yeah, so so we are definitely going to link that video to this podcast episode. And for those of folks that are watching and listening, you need to see this. You need to see this if you've ever gone through any kind of a weight loss journey, and it's not just a weight loss poem by any stretch.
Yeah.
But if you've ever had bouts of depression, if you ever have known pain, you need to watch this video. Now I know Jordan a little bit outside of this podcast from TikTok and whatnot, and I like to think that we've become friends a little bit.
Sure.
But I am so proud of you for the transparency and the bravery you showed to be able to even do that video, because it's real. It's real, and we don't often see that genuine transparency in videos. So,
another thing about it is, like, whenever I make like a video that I'm like, oh yeah, this is a great video, the first people that I send it to is my siblings, because I know at the end of that I talk about the rough relationship with them. With 5 out of the 7, like, things are going really well, and relationships are being repaired there. But I did not feel like I should share that one. My sisters have seen it, and my sisters knew like long ago how I felt about everything.
Yeah.
But I was like, that was another thing that gave me hesitancy. And I was talking to Danny, and I can't remember if he said it or if I said it, if I was working through it. And I said, nobody really cared when I was going through that. Nobody cared that I wasn't there. So why should I care how they feel about me telling the world,
Yeah.
And so it's not that I'm trying to have bad blood or anything with them. It's just that that's the reality. That's part of my story, and I'm not going to shut up about that.
No question. It's your reality. It doesn't matter. It does. I mean, it not only doesn't it matter, but it doesn't affect your reality, like how they view it. It doesn't matter, right? So, no, that's great. Okay, so I know we're getting a little short on time here for you, but I ask everybody, and I would love to hear that if you saw somebody who is just starting their weight loss journey and doesn't even know, they know that they have a problem and they know they need to move forward. What would you say to them?
I would tell them that they're not going to be perfect, that we go for progress over perfection. I would tell them to take it one meal at a time, one snack at a time in the beginning, because that's how I had to start. If you do too much too soon, you're bound to fail. And most importantly, if you need me, hit me up, because I've been there.
That sounds great. That sounds great. One question that I forgot to ask you, because I was so enthralled with your story, what is your goal?
My goal, man, that changes day to day. not day to day, but
I know, I get it. Like we have mini
do.
goals. Like we all have like these mini goals, right? And so if you know what your ultimate goal is, cool. If you don't, that's okay. I mean,
220 sounds like a sweet spot to me.
okay.
And I've gone back and forth. The extremes would be 250, and then the other extreme would be 180. I'm 5'10" when I'm not 600 pounds, so the weight has shrunk me down to 5'9". So I'm not a tall guy, but I think 220. My brother was 220 most of his life, and we have a very similar build. And I've always thought he looked really. We're pretty stocky. Genetically, we have a lot of muscle mass, so yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, so why don't we go ahead and wrap things up? Jordan, I can't even tell you how much I appreciate you talking with me today. It means the world to me. And as you know, on TikTok, we have this wonderful community that's very supportive of each other. And I want everybody to be able to know how to find you. So where can folks find you in social media?
So you can find me on TikTok, the Real Weight Loss Warrior, or Walking with Jordan. I think my actual @ is Real Weight Loss Warrior. But if you look for Walking with Jordan, you can find me there. Also, Kurt says he's going to pin my poem. I definitely want you guys to check that out because I'm very, very proud of it, in a righteous, proud way. Not an arrogant way, but I if it just helps one person, seriously, I want you to check that out. On Instagram, I'm not real active on the Instagram, but I'm also Real Weight Loss Warrior on Instagram. So you can find me there too.
Awesome. Once again, thank you for joining us, and thank you all for listening and watching. We will see you next time.
Hey, one more. Can I do my sign out real quick?
Yeah. Please do.
All right. I got to do this. Let me get my game face on, okay?
Okay.
All right, Weight Loss Warriors. We'll catch you on the next one, and go out and give a great day.